Paul Klee was a Swiss-born artist born in 1879 and lived until 1940. His art style was influenced by movements in art that included Expressionism, Cubism, and Surrealism. He was a natural draftsman who experimented with and eventually deeply explained color theory. Klee's parents were musicians, and Klee was also an accomplished violinist as well. Hey, third grade. Welcome. Today we are going to talk a little bit about Paul Klee, and here's a little example of what we're going to be doing. Now, hopefully you saw a little video on him, so you viewed that already. There's a couple ways that we can do this. So this one I did with oil pastels. Okay, and there's still a little bit more to finish on this side. This one was done with crayon. And this one was done with watercolor and then some oil pastel over it. Now, when Paul Klee did a lot of his paintings of castles and buildings and things, he just did them in, multiple colors, but didn't put some pattern over top. I thought that might be a really nice option for us to utilize some line and to create some pattern and some movement throughout our piece. Okay, so that's an option for us. So you can choose crayon, watercolor, colored pencil, or some oil pastel if you have it. Okay, marker will do just as well. And you can see I didn't outline, and that can be a choice of yours, whereas with this one I did outline. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to just get started, and then you're going to decide what you want to do. Okay, so you need a white piece of paper. Mine might look a little crooked on here. All right, we'll see. Okay, so I usually start with a pencil, and I try not to use anything that's too dark of a pencil, because then if it's too dark I can't really erase it. So we're gonna try to go light, and then we don't really need to make it darker. So let's see. So I'm starting with just very basic rectangles, and I'm starting on the side of the page. A lot of times what I see when kids will do a city building, they start in here. If you can kind of see that, some kids will start down here and make their first building here. We can go right to the edge. That's going to be great if we try that. Okay, so let's go right in, and I am going to try to go a little darker just so you can see it. Hopefully you can. Let me see. Now you can choose to use a ruler, or you can just go straight ahead and start drawing. So I'm going to go in. I'm going a little darker just so that you can see it. Normally I'd go very light. Actually, let me try a darker pencil here. This one's called the 7B, should be a bit darker. Okay, so I'm just going to go over my lines and get that a little darker for you. I want you to draw light. And then you're just making your lines coming down. Okay, and notice I'm going slow, and I'm just dragging my hand along the paper. Okay, I'm not making a rooftop, I'm not making windows, not doing anything like that yet. Okay, we don't even need windows for this. Okay, so I want to change the height of some of these, so I can make some that are taller. Now just do be careful, because you might want a top on it. I'm going to make some that are a little, maybe a little longer or wider. And I just drag my hand until I can't drag anymore. I can move it. Okay, all right. And keep going. Now I want a center one that's going to be a little bit bigger, but I'm going to make a skinny one here. Just a cute little skinny one. And like I said, you can change the size. Now, you don't have to copy mine exactly. You can do whatever you want to. All right, so I'm going to make a little bit of a taller one. I'm varying my size, creating some variation here. Make a nice big one so that I know that this is my main building. I've got a squeaky pencil here. Let me get this guy sharpened a little bit. There we go. Okay. And then I can go along and just keep making my buildings. And it's still squeaking. All right, well, we'll just go with it. How about a skinny one? and then I'll just draw a line straight across. Okay, so now I'm ready to just start making some tops, and then I'm going to break my building down into parts. Okay, so your tops can vary as well. Maybe you want some rounded tops instead of triangular tops. Okay, maybe something, you know, like this. Or maybe you want a little bit of everything, a little bit of rounded, a little bit of pointy, triangular. It's up to you. Now, if you decide, let's say that you want to go all triangular, what you can do is just kind of vary the height of your triangle and the angle of your triangle. Okay, so maybe I'll make maybe this one, we'll make him not too tall. I can't go too big. Okay, I really like those wide ones. Make a nice kind of wide, low triangle. Okay. And there we go. All right. So now it's ready to be broken down into some shapes. So what do I mean by that? Well, I think this one is the best example. So it looks like there's a lot of shapes here, right? We're only going to, well, let me just show you. There are a lot of shapes, but we're going to do it really easy, okay? So we're going to break our buildings down into about 3 spaces, okay? 2 or 3. So let's do 3 for this one. So I'm just going to draw a horizontal line. I remember a line that is horizontal is like a line that's laying down. Horizontal line is a line that is like your horizon line. It's between the land and the sky. Okay, so I've made 3 spaces. All right. So what I want to do in there is break that shape up, this square shape, really easy. I can draw a diagonal line. Boom. Now I have 2 shapes in there. I can leave it be. Okay, maybe in my next one, I draw a vertical line. 2 spots. Okay, now I have 2 spaces to color it. Okay, and then maybe down here, I do nothing, and that's okay. Or maybe I take it and I make an X. Okay, now I have 4 spots that I could color in. All right, let's keep going. So your spaces can change. Maybe you have one that's kind of small, one that's a little bigger, and then one that's bigger still. Maybe you decide to make your middle one empty, which is okay. Maybe you decide to do that. Ooh, but maybe you decide you want another line too. That's okay. So you're going to go along and you're just going to do that. Now, I'm going to take my little guy here, and what I'm also doing is kind of trying to change the heights of my spaces. They don't all have to match up. So this one happens to match up with my my pointy part. But you can see here this space, this line that horizontal line that I drew doesn't match up with this horizontal line. So I'm trying to change that so they don't all match up. Okay, this one I'm going to just do 2 spaces, and I'm going to just do a little one of those. Maybe I'll leave this blank, or you know what, maybe I'll just pop something in here. Maybe something like that, or maybe even something like that, kind of like a window shape. Okay, again, these are your choices. Down here, I'm going to put a big door. Again, do you have to do this? No. Could yours look like mine? Yeah. Could you try a different sort of door? Of course. All right, so anything that you feel like trying out, I want you to go for it. I'm going to draw a line going this way this time. Okay, and let's see. And notice I'm doing horizontals in every building. So let's try that. Let's go through all and make our horizontal lines so that we have our spaces. Again, one building could be 2 spaces, one building could be 3 spaces. They could all be 3 spaces. It's up to you, but you want to do your horizontal lines so that you can then create these other spaces. So if you want to go ahead, do your horizontals first and get get the other spaces in later, that's fine. So if you want to go this direction, get all your horizontals in and then break them up, let's see them breaking up. It's up to you. And it's real simple breakups. Could just be a diagonal line. Could just be a straight line. Okay? It could be that crisscross, the X. Could be something like this, something like this. Here's another one that I like. I take it from the corner and I draw another little triangle in there. And I don't go all the way through. So really experiment, but don't go crazy and make too much in one space. Okay, we're just drawing diagonal lines or vertical lines or horizontal lines within our buildings. Okay, let me see here. I like that one, and I'm going to leave that one blank. Okay, now you don't need to go over it with Sharpie. You don't need to go over it with oil pastel. If, however, you are doing watercolor, then I would suggest going over it with an oil pastel. So I have my oil pastels here. And one thing that I did was I went over everything with black. Okay, I just kind of like that. You could get fancy and try maybe a different color outline for each building if you wanted to. Okay, and then you would paint in each of your spaces. All right, so that's one idea. Now, if you choose to not do that, let's say you want crayons. Here I am with my crayon picture. Okay, I will just color in my spaces. So let's see what I have going here. I've got purple and yellow. They are complementary colors. I've also chosen to make some buildings all warm colors. You can see I did this one mostly in warms with this is more like a magenta kind of poking in there. This one I did mostly all cools, except I popped in a little bit of my warms. So you could do a theme like that where you go warm, cool, warm, cool, warm. You could do complementary colors if you'd like. You know, if you remember what the complementary colors are, they're the colors that we have set up in our room that, like, our tables are directly across from a color, a complementary color, like blue is across from orange, yellow is across from purple, and red across from green. Those are your complementary color pairs. Okay, there's 3 sets. All right, so let's get started here. I'm going to show you a little bit of this, and then I'm going to show you how I got my black line in there. I'm going to go with a couple of blues. Let's see. I like to do, like, if I do one color, I kind of like to make like different variations of that color. I wish I had a light blue, but I don't. But I do have a white. We can try that too. Okay, so let's check these guys out. So I start coloring in there, and I have a tendency to press a little bit harder. Now we know that if we press too hard, our crayons break. So you just have to apply your pressure the best that you can. So let's try something out here. Let's see if we can get a lighter color. So I'm going to go lightly with my dark blue. And then I'm going to go over this with a white crayon. Let's see what happens here. So I'm also going in a different direction. And it's going to kind of blend that color a little bit. It's not doing a whole lot. Let's change the direction again. It's a little bit lighter. Okay, so that's always an option too. All right, let's check this color out here. That's a nice one. And then when you are ready to, let's go with a green here. When you're ready to add your black lines, what I want you to do is make sure you've got everything colored in. Now I just did this so that you could see it. But if you put your black lines in and you're not done yet, if I go over this black, oops, it starts to pull right in to my green, and then it's not so pretty. Okay, so outline last. For the top, you can do anything that you choose. It does not have to be brown. It could be a couple of different browns. I have some reddish browns. I have some darker browns, some light colors. Just gonna color it in. Okay, And then when I'm done, I'm going to go over it with my black. Just take that and just outline right over it. Just like that. Joop. Pretty easy. Okay, let's take a break here and then I can show you a little bit of the watercolor. All right, guys, I'm going to show you a little bit of the watercolor one. All right, so what I did was I outlined my paper with black. So if you're going to choose watercolor, you're going to outline it with you can use a crayon or you can use an oil pastel. Halfway through, I thought, oh, geez, I want to show you how to do it with some colors. So you can choose to do colors, you can choose to do black. Whatever it is that you want to do for an outline is totally okay. If you want to do rainbow colors, whatever you want. All right, just realized I missed a spot. So I'm going to show you one of the colored ones, and I'm also going to show you one of the black ones. Okay, so let's take a look here. Move this guy up a little bit now. I'm using a smaller brush. It's not too big. I also have one that's a bit bigger. Don't think I'll be needing this guy. One that's tiny, a little tinier. So you have to judge. These aren't super huge spaces. Okay. All right, so with the watercolor, remember, you do not need like heaps and heaps of water. Yes, watercolor has the word water in it, and it does need water, but we're going to pick a color. Let's see, I'll start with my yellow, or my yellowish greenish color here, and I am going to get it wet, and then I'm going to just kind of take a few spins on it. Okay, well, mine's a little bit different. Now remember, when we brush on watercolor, we're not, making our brush do this. You want to just tickle it, okay? And if you don't see the color on your brush, that's all right. Watercolor is what we call transparent, okay? It's not opaque. It's not, what's the other word? We can see through it, okay? So I'm gonna pick a spot, and it's usually pretty good to work from top to bottom, but I'm just gonna start here for now, okay? And notice, I'm not using a lot. It's not super wet. Rinse my brush when I go to my nether color. Have some paper towel on hand. Okay, I'm going to go with my greens here, and I'm just getting it wet because they're not wet yet. And then I just pick up a little color, and notice it's still pretty bright for not going on it too much. If I want more, just about 3 times. Now I have a little less water in my brush, so it came out a little darker. That's a trick. If you don't have that much water in your brush, you're going to get a bit of a darker color. If you really water your brush down or really water your paint down, you're going to get a lighter color. So that's a good trick with red. If you want a pink, just kind of water it down a bit. Okay, let's go up here to the top, and let's get our top going. Now notice I wiggle it or I brush it back and forth. When I run out, I can tell because it starts to get light and kind of brush strokey. I can go back in and just brush it in there. Okay, pretty easy stuff. Let's take a look and see what a colored building might look like. All right, so I've got a red here. So I want to see, how will my reds look? Or if I have a cool or a hot color building, do I want to do it in only cools? You have to think those things through. You might even play around with it on your paper first, find a scrap paper to do it with. That's actually kind of cool. I kind of like it with that, but I am going to throw in some other colors. So let's go back to my purple. See how purple looks with it. I'm going to get it just a little more wet so I can spread it and get a little bit of a lighter, not so dark color. Now, you do want water in your brush. You do not want a color that is, I don't want to say too dark, but when it's too dark, it gets shiny when it dries. So it just means that you've kind of scooped your paint, or you've dug in your paint, and you've got a heaping amount of paint on your brush. And that's not how to work with watercolor. Watercolor is soft and watery and not thick. It's not that kind of paint. All right. So just keep going. Make sure your brush does have some water in it. You might even try something like this, where you do a little bit of a darker and then you just let that paint run out. It's called a gradient. If you don't like it, you go back in with a little bit more paint. Okay, a couple things you can do. All right, now when you want to do your sky, the easiest thing to do is I get my bigger brush. Okay, you can do it with a marker, a crayon, or if you want, do it with your watercolor. But I'm going to wet that brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of paint where I'm actually just painting with water where I'm going to add my paint, and I'm working quickly. I want that to stay wet. Okay, so I'm just getting in between my buildings, and I'm going to kind of stop about there, right at that middle building, because I don't think it'll stay wet long enough for me to get the whole thing painted in quickly. All right, so here's where I need to work fast. I need to know what color I'm using, and I'm going to lay it in. And you can see that sometimes the water will help move it around, and it's a real soft color. This should not be super dark. Okay, and I can just spread it in. This way it spreads nicely. Okay, and you can just kind of move it around a little bit more. Keep that brush wet, go back in, get a little bit more paint on your brush, and spread it around. Notice how quickly I worked. Okay, I'm not going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth over one area. That's going to help dig a hole in your paper, and you don't want that. That's happened probably to some of us. Okay, but just go only where there's no paint, paint it, move on. Okay, all right, now the other pictures real quick. If you would like, when you're done with your watercolor, and if you want to go over with oil pastels or crayons or markers even, you could add those extra lines, those extra details. Now notice I didn't do it everywhere. I only did it on some parts. Not every space has it, and it's just line. Any lines you can think of. Okay, you don't have to put in windows and things. You can just put some lines there. Or not. Your choice. Okay, I did it on this one, but I've noticed that it didn't show up very well with my lighter colors. Okay, I can try it, and I'm using, most of the time what I've used is a complementary color over top of my color, something that's going to make it kind of pop. Let's take a look at that. So if I chose this blue here, I could use an orange. Let's see what that looks like. Actually, I'm going to use this red because I think it's a bit brighter than my orange. This is my orange. If you can kind of see that, it's not so bright. Let's try it and see what happens. Okay, it looks a little bit dull. Nope, you can't see that. So putting the oil pastel over oil pastel can work. I don't love it for myself, but you might really like it, okay? So you could try that. Now let me just show you these oil pastels real quick. Grab a pink here, maybe I'll do this. So this one, I work top to bottom for sure, because I don't want to rub what I've done down here. You can't see this, can you? You don't want to rub, so hard to see whether I'm going forward or backward or which way I'm going here. You don't want to rub all this stuff in that you've already done. So if I do this and then I'm working my way up, my hand is going to go right over that stuff. So if I work top to bottom, that can really help me. And again, I do a lot of outlining, and then I just start coloring it in. Now, if this side is in my way, I can always turn my paper, okay, and work that way. All right, so I don't have to press super hard, because remember, our oil pastels are a bit softer. So they roll on really, really nicely. Now, let's say you get those annoying little, oh, I don't know, those little fuzz balls of oil pastel there. You can just take your finger and rub it in if you want, or just kind of get it off, okay? So you're just coloring really nicely in there. Taking your colors, and you can work sideways if you have to. If your pastel is dirty, like this one is, I just went over that blue with it. Just take it and just give it a little bit of a rub on a paper towel. Get some of that dirt off. Okay, and then you should have it nice and clean and ready to put on a nice color. All right, so pretty easy. Now, how would I finish my background with something like this? I could watercolor my background. I could, and also I wanted to point out, you could put in a sun or a moon. Okay. Now, if I were doing a background here, I could do it with crayon, watercolor. I could also continue with the oil pastel. I may want to turn my paper upside down and work on it. Okay. So anything is possible with this project. Okay, so we're making a castle or just a bunch of buildings, that may just look like buildings. All right, so this is really up to you. Please take a look at the Paul Klee video so you can get a handle on what he's done. Look him up on the internet. You'll look at a lot of his buildings. Okay, you might even see cat and bird. All right, but there's lots of stuff out there. Okie dokie, guys. Good luck and have fun. Can't wait to see everything next week. Bye-bye.